Hello, this is a MLinton Online video guide for soldering on headers to the MSP430 microcontroller by Texas Instruments. This is the Launchpad. This is the emulation board that's actually used with the microcontrollers. And one thing that's kind of nice about the way they ship this, they don't solder on the connection headers with it. They give you some options. You can either leave these open hole ports as they are, so you can use them that way. You can do what I did on my other MSP430 and use the male headers, which was nice for a project I was working on where I actually soldered my leads onto the end of the female side, and then I could just lock them together when I wanted to make that connection. But on this Launchpad, what I want to do is strictly use the female headers. The nice thing about these is that if you have a wire that you're testing or hooking something up to like a breadboard or something, you can just shove it down in there and it'll just work like that. So these are pretty handy to have as well. One thing to point out is that when you drop this thing down, you'll notice that this thing can wobble back and forth a lot. So don't go solder happy and solder all these pins at once. Simply flip it over, line it up as best as you can, and what we're going to do is just solder the first pin. Go ahead and make sure your soldering gun is pretty hot before you hit that pin, and just put a dab of solder on it. You don't need too much, just a dab. And then go and check your alignment. Now this one came out really straight. Usually they're a little bit crooked for me, and I can show you, but this one just so happened to come out really well. Well, if it is crooked, flip it over, apply a little bit of heat to this pin, and slide the board over to the left or the right, and then remove the soldering iron and check your alignment again. In this case, this is already pretty straight, and I'm pretty happy with it, so we're just going to leave it there. So we'll just go ahead and solder the remaining 8 pins at this point. And keep in mind, better to have too little at this point than too much. You can easily go back and add solder later if you find that you don't have a good enough connection. But if you glob it on there and you have too much, it can be a real pain to take off, especially since this solder is going down into those pins where we can't see it. And even using a soldering pump such as this, it can be real tricky to get the solder off. So now that we have that on there, which side did we just do? We just did this side. I may have flipped that. Either way, doesn't matter. Now when you're checking these, I'm just using a multimeter to just do a straight through connection. I'll even drag that over here. What you'll notice is when you're trying to go down into these, unless you have a real small tip, even on my other multimeter it's not small to really get down in that contact. So take the male header and just shove it down in there. So now you have a contact point you can go by. And then since your chip's removed, just check each port to make sure you have a good connection. And once you check all those, and if you do have a bad connection or a loose connection, you can always add a little bit more solder to it. But this is basically just how you want to kind of approach from a just more of a what do you call that, technique point of view, rather than just more than just a soldering guide. Likely if you're picking up this video, you've probably done a little bit of soldering, but this makes a real nice connection, and it's nice because you have a total personal preference. This one, for example, is the male, this one is the female. Perhaps the next one I get I'll just leave open, but I really like the way that TI packages their stuff, and I think it's pretty fantastic. I'm really impressed with this board, and the chips, the ultra low voltage chips or ultra low power chips are absolutely fantastic, and they're really capable. I hope this has been helpful. If you want to leave a comment or a question or a complaint, feel free to do that below or on the website. Thanks for watching.